We are dreamers,
frontline workers,
students,
visionaries,
healthcare workers,
bankers,
engineers,
educators,
designers,
nurses.
We're multi-passionate people,
dog lovers,
podcasters,
foot golfers.
We're hardworking,
blue collar,
strong, loving,
loyal.
We are advocates.
We're the sons and daughters of Lansing.
moms,
Dads, friends,
Neighbors.
we are family,
We are tradition.
We are perseverance.
We are resilient.
We are old.
we are young, we are the future,
We are fans.
We are supporters.
we are smoking bubbles.
we are soccer.
we are football,
We are a community club.
Community focused.
Community owned.
and we are community built.
This is Lansing's Club.
Lansing's Club.
Lansing's Club.
Lansing's Club.
we are Lansing Common FC.
Lansing Common FC.
Lansing Common FC.
Lansing Common Football Club.
We are Lansing Common FC. Let's go.
The Robin needed a podcast, and thus, here we are. Welcome to the best and only Lansing Soccer Podcast, live on Twitch, a new thing. I'm your host. My name is Weston Shelton, and the schedule is here. So we got a packed show for you. We got the Prez on. We're going to go kind of a little behind the scenes. We're going to talk about a couple of the big aspects of the schedule, and we're going to talk about the games we're most excited about. So as I said, joining me right now is the president, Eric Walcott. Eric, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. We've got a schedule, dates on the calendar. We're just over 40 days away from our first kick, and it's almost here. I can't wait.
So as you see on the screen there, season ticket memberships, they're available. If you've been holding off, it feels like the right time to buy one, Eric.
It does. It really does. Go get your season tickets.
You get the scarf, and you still get member rights and privileges just for that $80. And there's an annual exclusive member gift, and you can bring a friend in and convert someone onto the scene. So a lot of benefits there. And I'm sure you guys will be talking about it more, but eventually those memberships are going to be kind of turned off. So if you want voting rights, you should jump on that soon. All right, so we're gonna get into this, but before we start, I gotta read this quote from Coach Oakes in full here. This is the greatest quote I have ever seen. We have our own Robin Williams from Dead Poet Society. This will fire you up about the schedule. Oakes said, "I am excited about the first game, the last game, and all in between. Our friendlies will be fantastic, and we will be playing some quality teams at the USL League 2 level. The June 6th match will be special for the club and community as we get to showcase this new team alongside Lansing United. Finally, the league portion of the schedule will afford us the chance to lay down a marker for ourselves for years to come. A few years ago, I was at Duffy for an MSU prospect camp, and as I was walking out, I glanced up to see a quote over the door from George Pearls that read, 'They all count one. We look forward to each and every one this summer.'"
I like that you added the dramatic voice to that quote read. I want to show Oakes the recording of that sometime.
Told you, he's our own Robin Williams from the Dead Poet Society.
It's great.
So Eric, many may not know this, but in Midwest Premier League, it's kind of on the teams to make the schedule. So it was pretty much you working with the teams to make this happen, correct?
Yeah, basically it was, each club work with the other teams in the division, figure out what dates work for our home and away matchups, and just kind of pull it all together. I think the league was kind of there if there were, things we needed to work out, but we managed to get it all together, just working with all the other clubs.
So what was your goal for this? Like going in, what was your mindset in terms of what you wanted to see, especially for obviously the home games was probably your big focus, where you're just thinking like, I want as many Saturday games as possible? Were you thinking a lot about spacing out the games?
Yeah, I think we had a variety of goals. We wanted to have, somewhat balanced with home and away. So we didn't have, too many home games stacked in a row, too many away games to not have, big gaps. We did want to try and balance those Saturday evening, Sunday afternoon games. And trying to get, I think, some of those higher profile games a bit later in the year for a variety of reasons, again, schedule balance, a little bit of having to do with COVID restrictions and hoping that, by July, more of those are lifted. And also there's a little bit of that just like drama factor of like, let's play some of those big games right at the end. Hopefully we're in contention at that point, and those can be it can be an exciting finish.
Yeah, I will talk a bit about it later, but I was pretty excited to see a fair amount of home games at the end of the season when I feel more confident that COVID will hopefully be in a better spot there. So obviously your first time doing this, what valuable lessons did you learn for future years making this schedule?
I think the biggest thing was to try and build in some more flexibility. Towards the end, texting back and forth with a couple different clubs, and it was kind of like, here's the one date we have left. I hope that this works for you. And some of that was the schedule compacted a little bit because of COVID and pushing back college seasons. So some of that will be different in future years, but definitely trying to plan a little bit more for that. So that there's not quite, that little bit of struggle at the end.
And was it a fun process making the schedule, or did you hate it?
It was fun and stressful. There's a lot of freedom in creating your own schedule, which was great, especially I think for this year. But there were times when, like, for example, late in the process, one club texted and was like, "Hey, our field isn't actually available the date we were going to host you. Can we move that?" And the schedule was pretty full at that point. So that creates a little bit of challenge, but it worked out, and I think we're pretty happy with the schedule we ended up with.
And how much were you? We talked about how you're thinking a little bit about COVID restrictions and such. How much were you thinking about the other teams in town? I don't know if you knew the Lansing United schedule. That didn't drop too far before us, but the Lugnuts schedule was definitely out. Curious if you thought about them at all.
Yeah. Yep. So Lansing United, we had talked to Jeremy about trying to kind of work it out so we didn't have overlapping games. We didn't end up being able to really do that and kind of work with them on that because of how their league sets their schedule. But we got really lucky in that the only date we both play at home is June 6th, when we have that doubleheader. So that worked out really well. And then the Lugnuts, I definitely had the Lugnuts schedule open when I was, looking at dates for our home games. It wasn't really a thing of like, avoid that at all costs, but kind of figured if it works to avoid playing at the same day or the same time, then try and avoid it. And I think we ended up with just 2 dates that we have home games the same day the Lugnuts play.
Cool. So we're not going to go through every game in the schedule here, but we're going to go through the noteworthy stuff and a couple of things I noticed. I think we'll have that on the screen, or just, open on your phone or something when you're listening. And also just to note, thanks to Steve Beckman, who's producing this right now, board member, and he might be popping in with a couple comments as well. So, hey, we got to start at the home opener, right? It's the home opener. It's the club opener. It's going to be kind of a surreal day, playing Fort Wayne Sport Club, Saturday, May 15th, 6 p.m. I'll be real. I had conflicting feelings about this one. Obviously I'm excited about Lansing Common and soccer, but I was I wish it was a game that mattered, but for the team, I imagine it's a good thing to have a friendly before the real deal. Was that kind of maybe what Oaks wanted, a friendly before things started?
Did you not listen to the quote you read from Oaks? They all matter, Weston. They all count one.
Do they? Because some count for 3 points.
But in all seriousness, so I think a couple of things. First, I think we wanted a friendly for 2 reasons. One, it's good for the team, for the squad to get a game under their belts all together before we get into league play, because these are a bunch of guys where a few of them have played together previously, a couple are on the same college team, a few played together in high school, but for the most part it's guys that have never played together. So to only have a week before the first game is not a lot of lead time. So that was one reason. And then also it gives us a chance to work out some of the kinks of hosting a game before we get into league play. We're also learning how to do all the off the field stuff for the first time. So getting that in. and in terms of like team preparation, again, 3 of our first 5 games are friendlies. The other thing I'd just add on that, I've been trying to like reframe my thinking on that, of like thinking of them as like conference and non-conference games. At this level, the games are all important, even if the friendlies don't count for the league standings. We still want to have a good product out on the field and put on a good show. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
When you were making this, I assume like Saturday night was a must for you, right? For the first game.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were aiming for Saturday night. Sunday afternoon would have been an option, but that was kind of the ideal. Get that under the lights on a Saturday. It seems like a great time for attendance. So hopefully it'll be a good event.
When do they start practicing then? Is that like right before the friendly or?
Yeah, so right now our schedule first practice is May 10. That may change depending on how Spring Arbor does, and then the NAIA national tournament. So there's a chance to maybe start a little bit earlier, but the plan is for May 10, which really gives just a week of practice before that first friendly.
All right, so then we get into the games that count. Saturday, May 22nd. That'll be the first ever Midwest Premier League game for us. It'll be at home. It'll be at 6 p.m. against the West Michigan Bearings. So hopefully the team's ready. Oaks had a game to get the lineup in order. Eric, you guys behind the scenes, you'll have everything figured out. COVID will be going way down. It'll just be a magical day. We're just gonna assume that.
Sounds like a good plan.
And then, but I guess when you're going through, we got a couple road games. And June 6th, that's the one game that was previously announced. Friendly against the Grand Haven Admirals, and that's a double header with Lansing United, also facing Chicago Kicks. I guess you talked a little bit about this already, but can you tell a little bit about how this came about? I know from the start you kind of wanted something like this, right? At least one game.
Yeah, that was definitely a goal of ours from early in the schedule process. A lot of us have been Lansing United supporters since early on and remain supporters of the women's team. So we wanted to find a way for the two clubs to work together. It would have been really fun to be able to do it against like an opponent we share. Detroit City, for example, has a team in UWS, so that would have been kind of cool, and maybe something in the future that we could do. But we're really, really excited to get to host Lansing United. Get to have that event and just hopefully make that like a big day of soccer. And if we can make that an annual thing that we can do, that would be really awesome, I think, to just showcase the best soccer in the Lansing area.
I think this year Detroit City is the only opponent that we share, at least. But this year, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of that opponent we share, obviously a lot of people have this one circled. Independence Day, July 4th, 2 p.m. home against Detroit City FC. That's gonna be wild. So anyone that's in Lansing knows that's July 4th is a giant day for the Lugnuts. They have a lot of success on that day with their fireworks. They tend to sell out like 8,000-9,000 people, I think, a lot of the time. Did you come in making the schedule being like, I want our own July 4th game, I want to make our own thing, and then we don't have fireworks, but we do have Detroit City? I assume for you that was the next best thing.
And just want to point out, someone beat you to that pun in the chat on Twitch here. But
it was in my outline.
Yeah,
I'm not forward Madison this. All right, I'm not copying me. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, so I mean, we talked about that as a board. If we, was that something we wanted to target or stay away from? And I think we kind of thought, Lansing United has had some pretty good attendance games on 4th of July in the past. Obviously, you mentioned the Lugnuts getting pretty good attendance. So, we wanted to we made that a goal. We wanted to have a home game and make a big event out of it. And Detroit City, obviously, not probably, they will bring the biggest away crowd of anyone coming to Lansing this season. So we thought if we're going to try and make a big event of it, that would be a good opponent. So hopefully by then, we're doing better with COVID numbers and have fewer restrictions and can get a big socially distanced mask wearing crowd at that game.
Let's hope for it. And that's, I mean, it's tough to say, obviously, brand new league, but I wouldn't be shocked if that's a game that matters a lot in the table. I'll just say that. So going through the schedule, I couldn't help but notice 4 different spots in the schedule where we have 2 games in 3 days. I know you had, there's a lot of weird availability stuff, especially this year. Probably made that kind of impossible to avoid. So I'm just curious if you actually talked about that, like with Oaks, as you were making the schedule, like, hey, there's going to be some stretches where you might need some depth.
Yeah, for sure. And our goal was to not have multiple games in the same weekend. But just because of that late start, that just ended up not working out this year. If not for COVID, pushing the NAIA tournament back to spring, we'd probably be starting games earlier in May. If you look at the rest of the league schedule, you'll see teams that are starting that first weekend in May, last weekend in April with their league schedule. So that would give a lot more space, to be able to go all of May, June, and July with that schedule. So that'll be something we're aiming to do in future seasons, just to try and space that out. Again, it's better for the players. It's better for the team, not stretching the depth as much, and also if there's any like injuries they're dealing with and all that. So that was the goal. We tried to limit it as much as possible, but just with the compressed schedule that we're all dealing with this year, didn't quite work out.
Was that something you had to communicate with Oaks on a bit? Like,
yeah, we talked about it, and we just it was that understanding of like, this is the situation. There's not a whole lot we can do about it. And one area where we could have created some space is do a few less friendlies, but we felt really good about the opportunities that we have with the friendlies we're playing. Between the opponents that we're doing, and then like we talked about already, the doubleheader and then that season opener. So those we felt like kind of the trade-off of a little bit busier schedule, but some exciting opportunities on the schedule, for home games and also for our players, and the opportunities against Kalamazoo and Fort Wayne FC kind of made that worth it.
So obviously anyone looking at the schedule sees a lot of away games, 4 games of our own, and a lot of home games to end it. Was that kind of done on purpose? Were you kind of trying to get as many home games as late as possible to hopefully maximize attendance?
Yeah, I think it was partially that, wanting to have that like string of games toward the end to get people excited about it. I think, thinking back to Lansing United seasons, there was often kind of a feeling of like, by the time a lot of people realize the season is going, it's almost done. And so I think we wanted to kind of maximize on having that stretch of games at the end of the season where it's like, hopefully by then we've been able to generate more excitement in the community. Hopefully again, COVID numbers are down and there's less restrictions there, and be able to have a really exciting, packed attendance, good atmosphere for those last games.
I think if we do well early, we can afford a billboard maybe, and that'll really generate some excitement. So I noticed 4 home games are on Saturdays. So curious, I like I said, I assume that's a day you're mostly trying to go for. We do have a lot of Sunday midday games as well. Are you pretty satisfied with the amount of Saturday nights, or is that just, were you hoping for more, or is that just kind of all we could do?
Yeah, we wanted to have a balance. That was something that I know I took away from Ignite's schedule, and I know they were limited because of the baseball schedule. But Ignite played almost all of their home games at 7:00 at night, which meant that like my oldest son, who was 3 at the time, only went to 1 game that year because like 7:00's close to bedtime. So we wanted a balance of evening and afternoon, and wanted our evening games. So you'll notice like most of our Saturday games are like 6 p.m. Wanted our evening games early enough that people with younger kids can bring kids to games, not feel like they're keeping them up super late. So just trying to balance, just making the schedule as accessible as possible to everyone.
At 10:30 a.m., I believe your kids are up now, right?
Oh, for sure.
I think I hear a little bit. So one thing missing here that I have not seen anywhere is how a potential postseason would work. Do we have details on that? Is there potentially some games the next month over?
For this season, there is no postseason. You finish top of the table, you win the division, and there's not going to be crossover between the East and West division. So if July, if that last home game of the year against Livonia City, if we're in first place, we win the league. So yeah.
There you go, Euro snobs. All right, so let's do this. I have no idea what you're going to say here, Eric. We're going to do top, and I believe Steve will have some for us too. But we'll start with you. Top 3 games you are excited about, Eric, on the schedule. I know you love them all equally, but we're going to assign favorites.
Yeah, so I think my top 3, it is tough because there's a lot to get excited about. Fort Wayne, that first game, May 15, has to be on there because it's that first game in club history. That's huge. I think Detroit City on July 4 for the event that can be. And then for me, I think the other one is that June 6th doubleheader. When I think about what I'm excited about, I know that's a friendly for us, but like just the opportunity to have that big event in the community that hopefully can get the whole kind of Lansing soccer community really excited. That to me is a big thing. So I think those would be my top 3.
Steve, did you want to pipe in with your top 3?
Yeah, I'll go with, I don't want to repeat too much, but as part of game day operations, that home opener on May 15th, obviously we've got a lot building up to that. As Eric said, that's going to be a historic moment for the club, so we can't discount that at all. Other one's kind of a little bit off everybody else's radar. I'll highlight is on May 30th against Kalamazoo FC. They've been around for a while, and a couple of their former players kind of linked up with us in our off season for the lower league E-Cup. On and Bin Lay, the brothers, used to play for Kalamazoo. So the inaugural Lay brothers throwback game, if you will. And then on June 26th, BIH Grand Rapids. For those who are unaware, BIH is a shortened term for Bosnia-Herzegovina, and the majority of their players have been around and together for a long time. And I think putting our club up against them, a kind of hardened squad, the contrast of styles on the field will be something that we'll be preparing for in our run up to that match, and something I'd really like to see play out on the pitch.
Props for nailing the pronunciation there. But yes, unfortunately I agree with Eric a little too much. I have the home opener on the first one, even though I was complaining about it being a friendly. Look, it's going to be a surreal day. It's just going to be wild. Like I'm trying to picture it in my mind, and I just don't. It blows my mind every time I think about just seeing our guys out there. It's going to be a crazy day. And, maybe being a friendly, a little less stress, we can just focus on enjoying the day a little more rather than worrying about the table. Number 2, I did put the July 4th game versus Tcfc. This might also be my most dreaded game, so I'm conflicted. But but I mean, just the state. I mean, look, nothing beats the stakes of a game like that when you have away supporters. And I think the most exciting games in Lansing history that I've been to were the ones where we had some away supporters. So there's some nerves, but there's some good nerves too. And then I just the home ending one against Livonia City was my number 3. I mean, there's a chance that one's pretty important for the table. We'll see. But I'm definitely, I mean, I just think the COVID restrictions will be the best possible spot at that point, just logically, and it should be a good game and a celebration of the season, if you will. Real quick, game you're dreading the most before we get to mailbag here.
I mean, if I'm being honest, the Sunday night at 8 p.m. game in Livonia is probably the one I'm least excited for, just because the Sunday night at 8 p.m. Like, that's just, not an ideal time. I mean, I'm sure it'll be a fun game. We'll be fine, but.
Yeah, might need June 21st off. I think I'm with you. Or Tcfc on the road, just because, I don't know. I've never been to Keyworth, but I can't imagine they'll be terribly polite. All right, so I can't. I don't know if Steve, if you can read some of the Twitch questions we've got, and then we'll go into the ones we got on the on Twitter earlier. I'm having a hard. My vision's not great. I'm having a hard time.
Sure. One of them was, is there a date when our roster has to be finalized? And that is true. And I'll let Eric take that one.
Yeah, so off the top of my head, I don't remember. Basically, the week of our first game, like, we'll have to have our roster in. There is a process to add players throughout the season, and then there's a cutoff date at some point in the season when we can't add players anymore. So the answer to that is yes, and off the top of my head, I don't remember what it is.
And the other one was, has there been any thought of possibly having a match at DeMartin Stadium, specifically since Lansing United and Tcfc did it in the past? Could it happen in the future?
We haven't, we haven't really thought that far ahead with scheduling. I think we're open to lots of different ideas, but haven't really thought that far down the road with scheduling.
Yeah, and I would add that DeMartin has a much lower capacity than Lansing Eastern Stadium, so it would kind of rule it out in my book because we want to have as many fans as possible. And then Fort Wayne FC, how did that match come about?
Yeah, they reached out to us actually through Jeremy Sampson with Lansing United. They reached out to us and they were really interested in having us come down for a friendly. And I'm excited about that. They've been really, good to work with and kind of expressed interest in trying to collaborate with clubs in the region. And for those who don't know, they're co-owned by DeMarcus Beasley, which is a pretty awesome, name to connect with. And then they're also, I think in 2023, moving up to USL League One and working on building their own stadium. So I think, there's potential there for a partnership that, that could lead to some connections with a pro club at some point. Maybe it means in a couple of years we're able to play friendly against them again, when they're a pro club, and that'd be a great opportunity for our players.
And then Simon asks,
Sorry.
did we have to get special noise clearance to play that late in Livonia?
That supporters group might have to inquire about that.
Then Sports Writer asks, how many more players does the club expect to sign before the opener?
Yeah, so we're targeting a roster of about 25, and I think the goal is to have that roster pretty settled by the time the season starts. I think at this level, there's always the chance that some player becomes available or wants to join a couple of games into the season. But I think from everything that I've talked to with coaches, their goal is to have that roster pretty settled by the time the season starts.
So how many more is that going to be?
We are at, and that's around 10 more. We're around 15 right now, so about 10 more players. We've got another tryout coming up April 18, and there's a really good group signed up for that. So I know the coaches are hoping to sign a couple more players from there. And then I know, just talking to Oaks yesterday, he said the number of players and like the quality of players that are reaching out to the coaches like on a daily and weekly basis saying like, hey, we want to come play for you guys, is a really high level. So they're pretty excited about the guys we've already announced and some of the guys that they're talking to right now.
And then one last one. What will the concession stand and food and beverage situation be like for home games?
Yeah, we're still figuring that out with the district. So one of the things that's with our partnership with the district is that Lansing Eastern will be handling concessions for the most part and using that to fundraise for their soccer programs, which we're really excited to be able to to use this partnership to support their athletic programs. The last that we had a conversation, they weren't planning on concessions for the beginning of the season because of the current COVID restrictions. If those change before the season starts, and there's odds are there'll be some change, that may change. So we'll be sure to update, with information on whether concessions are going to be available or if people can bring some food in. So some of that stuff is just kind of changing, as COVID restrictions change and guidance from the state and the county health department changes. So we will be very sure to put lots of information about that out as we get close to the season.
And then one more from Patrick. Are there other clubs in Michigan that you'd like to see Lansing play in friendlies like Flint City or AFC Ann Arbor?
Yeah, I mean, I think, AFC Ann Arbor actually was one that they had reached out to us early on after our announcement last July and said, hey, let's do a friendly. They ended up they're not playing this season. They're being very cautious related to COVID, and they decided to sit the season out. So that I think that's one we could expect to see in future seasons. Flint City can be fun. I think there's a handful of teams that we were talking to that it just didn't work out this year because of schedule dates and availability. But yeah, there's a lot of great teams in Michigan. So, hopefully through the years, we'll get to meet more of them on the field.
And one more from Patrick Blanton from Louisville. When can he expect the Lansing at Louisville City friendly to be announced?
Patrick, if you connect me or one of us with someone at Louisville City who wants to talk about that, we would love to have that conversation. So whenever we can make it work.
That would be great. Oh, I do think the sky's the limit on friendlies, honestly, in future years. But I guess it's not the sky. I don't think we're getting like Spurs over here or whatever. But we got some pretty big ones. I know some good conversations have occurred. So I know this year was probably tougher with COVID. So next year we could see some good stuff. So we also had some questions from Twitter earlier on. Ken asked, has a beverage-friendly location for pregame and halftime been located or still in the works?
And you can bring water into the stadium. You can drink that wherever you want to. If reading into the question that I'm sure you're asking, I think that's going to be something supporters are going to have to put some thought into. We can obviously answer questions about that. Obviously, like at the stadium, that's not going to be, we're not going to have alcohol in the stadium. But if you want to work with the supporters on figuring out your solution to that, go ahead and do that, and just don't tell me about
it. There are a solid amount of bars in a fair distance. I don't know if walking, who knows? I guess it depends on how much you like to walk. Nicholas asks, I'm assuming you'll do it for the doubleheader, but are you going to cover Follow United this year on the pod? Definitely my plans. I think we're just kind of trying to figure out how we're going to do this schedule around everything that's going on. And I know a lot of the people currently on the pod, like Eric and everyone, might feel a little awkward commenting on the team's performance week to week anyway. So, we got to sort out some stuff at the pod. I might need someone else to talk about common games actually, but I'm pretty confident Jeff will be down to do United too. I'm sure it can get tricky sometimes, obviously, with their own schedule and traveling, and some of the away streams aren't great, but I'm sure we'll be able to put something together this year. TFC2 and D3 asks, what nickname are you pulling for the team to have? Robins, Commoners?
Robbins is kind of right there for it. I think our approach from the club has been we're not gonna force anything. If the supporters want to kind of lean towards something, or if something just kind of naturally comes, that kind of works. So we'll see as the chanting goes and singing goes on during games, what people start calling us.
I don't know how bad you want to tackle this question, but we got it. For Eric, with U.S. not qualifying for Olympics again, do you see this as a reflection of the quality of the team or federation not taking Olympics seriously? They played a friendly on the same day with certain U23 stars. It's not really common related, but whatever.
Yeah.
Freewheeling conversation.
I will just very quickly, the friendly on the same day is completely irrelevant because none of the players that played in that friendly were going to be released by their clubs for Olympic qualifying. I think it means that U.S. soccer just needs to invest more in Lansing Commons so that we can get working on developing players that are going to help us, win a gold medal and win the World Cup someday.
That's why you're the prez. You know how to pull it back. I like it. And then Ken asked if there's any chance of cross-pod stuff with other MWPL clubs. I think the only other club with a pod would be DeKalb, right, with the Build It. So definitely down for a clip. Eric was on there.
Yeah, so I was on their pod. I think it'd be great to get a few people from some of the other clubs on. We've tried to do a little bit. We'll have some content coming up, kind of introducing supporters to the other clubs in the league, but it'd be great to get to get someone from the clubs on to share a little bit, help our fans and supporters get to know the teams we'll be playing against. So yeah, it sounds like fun.
Yes, if you want to learn more about the Midwest Premier League teams, we have content for you. Very respectful content. All right. So once again, I think that's it, unless anyone pops in with any more questions in the Twitch stream here. But just as a reminder, if you haven't bought that season ticket membership yet, do it. It's a great value, $80, and so still the Founders is out there for $200, where you get the jersey. I'm wearing that today. It's a great jersey. I highly recommend it. Great material, lots of nice little touches on it. Got to thank our sponsors again: Ozones, Highland Plastics, Metronet, Jacqueline Biggs, Realtor, Strange Matter Coffee, Gabriel's Community Credit Union, Greater Lansing Soccer Open, Moneyball, and Die Hard. You can see Julian Burge on the screen there. It's a beautiful kit, Eric. It's just wonderful work by Jeff, and we have another kit on the way in a few weeks. Not all white, not a plain white kit.
It was kind of between the number of people who went for that, but also like the feedback of people being like, "Hey, this looks awesome." It was kind of funny to sit back and watch yesterday as we were knowing that the away kit, which is beautiful. Like the home kit, you said, Jeff did great work. The away kit also, Jeff did amazing work on it. I can't wait for everyone to see that because it's gorgeous.
How did you feel seeing the people who were complimenting the plain white kit?
I mean, people can have their preferences and their opinions. I'm not a fan of the plain white jerseys, but if people want to like a plain white jersey, that is up to them, and they can do that. I would not expect to see that be something we would wear in the near or distant future. But there's plenty of other teams out there that do. So if you're a fan of those plain white jerseys, go buy literally any MLS away team's jersey.
And the plus side to those jerseys is if it gets ripped mid-game, you can just throw on a white tee and you're good. We did have another question here from Earthpig asking if any friendlies against the Western Conference were considered. I definitely would have liked to see a game against DeKalb, but obviously it's a little harder to pull off probably.
Yeah, I think that'll be something for future seasons that we'd love to do. There's some great clubs there in terms of like online presence, and also there's some historic like Bavarians, RWE Adria, like those are some really high level historic clubs. Edgewater Castle is doing some awesome stuff in the Chicago area. So there's a few clubs that I think we'd love to do a friendly with in the future. Just got to kind of find a way to make it make sense so that we're not doing too much long distance travel, because that's where at this level, that's where the expenses really can kind of skyrocket when we start taking long trips. So love to do it, just kind of figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, and I would add that different states having different COVID protocols makes it a little dicey. With Fort Wayne being in Indiana, for those that are unaware, Indiana is pretty lax compared to Illinois and Michigan, so that made it a little bit easier to go out of state.
It was put well, Steve. I'll say that. And someone noted that Adria and Lansing have some history as well. Yeah, there's a lot of cool clubs in the West. We got to get to the finals next year when there's finals, and that will also get us a Western Conference game that we'd like to see. Anything else we got to plug before we go?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So as you all probably know, we're playing at Eastern this year. You can see the crew walking in. Pretty excited for that. I was there for the tryouts, and it's going to be a cool setup. I think there's a very logical spot for supporters. There's then everyone else will have a pretty big stands where they can space out well. I think. I see some snow there in honor of our beautiful April weather. It's a beautiful field though. And I said I'm excited about it. Great location too, obviously right in the heart of Lansing. So shouldn't be too hidden or hard to find.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful facility. I'm super excited to be able to play there, and then just for that partnership with Lansing School District. It's a great partnership, and I'm hoping we can do a lot of cool things together.
All right, I believe that's it. Like I said, if you haven't got that season ticket membership, it's time to get it. It's time to get the kit. we're what, 43 days away? It's kind of crazy to say that, but
yeah, that gives me a sense of excitement and anxiety at the same time.
Well, the rest of us are just excited, the ones that don't have as much responsibility, so that's cool. We'll be here excited. You take on the stress for us, Eric. All right, well, thanks everyone for watching live. Thanks for everyone who listened on the Robin Pod on whatever platform you listen to. Said obviously with the season coming on, we're expecting to amp up the pods a little bit, hopefully get a little more content going. So can't wait to talk to y'all again soon. Thanks again.